To most, Gaben is seen as gaming Jesus, Messiah of the Steam sale, and the last defender protecting the gaming world from the evil corporations who are trying to tear it all down. But is that just a facade? You see, Valve shares a lot of responsibility for some of the biggest issues in gaming, whether they were early adopters or pioneers who led us down the trail that led to the edge of the cliff the industry has fallen off of. So I'm going one by one down a list of a few of the things Valve holds some share of the blame for, starting with the least heinous, and ending with what I think is the worst trend they are involved with.
I'm Gabe Newell.
This is probably the least egregious of Valve's crimes against gaming, as while they definitely had some involvement, they were not the main perpetrators. Obviously, the most well-known form of paid mods is Bethesda's Creation Club, the in-game store used in various titles like Fallout 4 and Skyrim's later releases. And unsurprisingly, people generally hate the idea of paid mods, as typically the developers of these mods end up getting screwed over with unfair payment splits, and it does take something that was previously an open, community-driven concept, but is now putting it in the hands of game studios and slapping a usually fairly hefty price tag on it. While I do find it hard to argue against mod developers getting compensated for their work, this is definitely not the way to go about it. Now, while Bethesda is the one who usually gets the blame for this, it is worth noting that before the Creation Club came along, they were working with Valve to create a Steam Workshop mod store. The Steam Workshop is a section on Steam where if the game supports it, users can easily download and manage mods, create collections to send to other people, and overall is probably the easiest way to mod games. It's a great thing because if you've done any modding outside of Steam, you probably know it can be a hassle and cause shitloads of issues for even the most tech-savvy hardcore gamers out there. In 2015, Valve and Bethesda saw a chance to capitalize on this. Starting off with Skyrim, they planned to launch a paid mod program so that developers could be properly compensated for their work. Or at least that was the claim. The only issue was the fact that they decided that a fair revenue split was 25% to the mod creator and everything else goes to Valve and Bethesda. Now sure, Valve and Bethesda getting a cut of the pie is perfectly fair. After all, they are providing the foundation allowing these developers to make their mods. But really, taking the majority of the revenue for something that your community worked on themselves? Especially for a game like Skyrim, where a massive amount of the sales came from the fact that this modding community exists. They were already doing you a huge service by making these mods and you still want to screw them over? Especially as a lot of Skyrim mods are made specifically for fixing issues that Bethesda left in the game. Now admittedly, that revenue split isn't all Valve's fault. From what I can tell, Valve was just taking their standard 30% fee that applies across the entire site. Now whether or not you think that's fair, it is at least an already set standard. It was Bethesda that decided that they get that 45% split, bumping up the total to 75%. But Valve does get their share of the blame for allowing Bethesda to take such a high amount. But due to community backlash, Valve would shut this down within days of the launch, and have not attempted it again, even if Bethesda would do it again 2 years later anyway. And since they realized how badly they fucked up and shut it down quickly, it is the least terrible of the three.
I'm Gabe Newell.
The second of the big three gaming sins I can think of is the good old-fashioned loot box. The concept of a loot box does go back pretty far. Sometime in the 1880s, the humble gumball machine started to appear in the United States. You know the ones, put in a coin, turn the knob, and out pops a gumball. Eventually, these machines evolved into the toy capsule dispensers that I'm sure many of you know or have at least seen outside of malls or your local supermarket. In 1965, after these toy capsule machines started getting exported to Japan and were discovered by a Japanese businessman, Ryozo Shigeru, he decided to set up his own capsule machines, leading to the creation of the now famous Gachapon machines. Now we need to fast forward about 40 years to the emergence of Gachapon mechanics in video games. The first known use of these mechanics in a video game is in the Japanese version of MapleStory, where you could purchase a Gachapon ticket, which when redeemed would give the player random items. This would then expand to the entire genre of gacha games, better known as anime titty JPEG collectors, which dominates a fair chunk of the market to this day. Now you might be asking,
Mr. TheWiiUEnthusiast, You are so cool and smart and handsome. But why are you talking about Japanese gachapons in a video about Valve?
And to that I would say, you're right, I am all of those things, but sit down, shut up, and let me get to the point. Yes, admittedly, Valve did not come up with the idea of a loot box. But that doesn't mean that Lord Gaben, king of the Steam sale and first of his name, doesn't get a share of the blame. In the mid to late 2000s, when gachas and loot boxes first started popping up, they never really escaped the East. They worked in those regions due to the culture around gaming there, but didn't take hold in the West. Well, at least they didn't until the rise of one dress-up simulator disguised as a PvP game. In September 2010, as part of the Manconomy update, Valve dropped their brand new invention, the Manco Supply Crate. Truly a great innovation. For if you paid Valve money, you could win the opportunity to possibly unlock a brand new cosmetic that maybe, just maybe, you actually want. While again, the Manco Supply Crate system was far from being the first of its kind, it definitely had several effects on the gaming industry as a whole. First, as far as I can tell, Team Fortress 2 was the first game to implement the modern idea of a loot box, as in a randomized system to unlock purely cosmetic items. Before this, loot box or gacha systems typically rewarded players with items to boost gameplay and were effectively just a pay-to-win system. It's pretty well documented these days that pay-to-win systems, especially in games such as Team Fortress 2, do not go down well with the player base. So making the crates entirely cosmetic was definitely a good business choice on Valve's end, as it made it a lot less off-putting to players because it's seen as optional. The unfortunate side effect is that it also shows to every other company that people will put up with loot boxes as long as they're seen as cosmetic and optional. So yes, while Valve did not pioneer the loot box, they definitely changed the perception of how loot boxes could be implemented, leading to their use in hundreds of other games over the next decade.
I'm Gabe Newell.
Now, I may have let Gabe off lightly with the loot boxes, because sure, he didn't invent them, so we can't put all the blame on the guy. It just wouldn't be fair. But that's about to change, because this one is all his fault. Now, I'm sure a lot of people assumed that Fortnite was solely responsible for unleashing the horror known as the Battle Pass on humanity. I know I did for the longest time. And that's kinda fair, since for a lot of people, me included, Fortnite was the first time that they had heard of a Battle Pass. It was definitely the game that caused it to be used in every fucking game to release since. But they stole the idea from Gaben. On May 6, 2013, Valve released the Dota 2 2013 International Compendium. To fund the prize pool for the 2013 Dota 2 International Tournament, Valve sold the compendium and 25% of each sale would go towards the tournament. Players would rank up by creating fantasy teams and watching matches, and if their players did good, they would level up or something. Honestly, I'm not really sure how it worked, and as far as I can tell, it's just not very well documented. While this is admittedly not quite a battle pass, it is getting pretty close, and in just 1 year's time, Valve would change history. For the 2014 Dota 2 International, Valve would come back with another compendium, and this time it would be a little different. Now, instead of playing Fantasy Dota to get points for loot boxes, players would get compendium points from playing the game and completing challenges to level up and unlock rewards. Where have I heard this before? Oh shit, guys, they finally did it! After 2014 years, we have finally reached the peak of humanity. Lord Gaben has bestowed upon us the Battle Pass. Valve would continue the compendium for 2015, before renaming it to the Battle Pass in 2016, which would run until 2022 before being discontinued. So yeah, Valve invented the Battle Pass, and predates Fortnite's by 3 to 4 years. Again, they don't necessarily get all the blame for ruining gaming, but they definitely get a majority of it this time. And apparently Dota's Battle Pass was one of the most predatory. From what I've read about players' thoughts on the Battle Passes, it was basically impossible to complete without spending money on, where it can be completed solely through spending enough time. But take that with a grain of salt, I don't actually know. I've never actually played Dota before, and the footage you're watching in the background is probably the only match of Dota I've ever played, because I downloaded the game, recorded a match, and then deleted it. Unless I thought it'd be funnier to get someone else to play it for me. I'm not sure, I haven't decided yet.
I'm Gabe Newell.
Now, do I think Gaben is an evil executive up there with the CEOs of EA and Ubisoft? No, of course not. As the head of gaming companies go, Gaben is one of the best, and is typically pretty good at putting the consumer first. But it's also worth being aware that Valve has had some massive fuck-ups and done their fair share in terms of leading the gaming industry to where they are. And while I don't think we should go after Valve, it's also good to be aware of what they have done, so we can keep an eye on them in the future. But also, it's just interesting to see where a lot of this stuff has come from.